just how much BPO are you supposed to use? And for those of you unfamiliar, you can typically find it on the market in washes or leave-on topicals between the range of 2.5 to 10. And I think for a while there, everyone was gunning for that 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Brands that do BPO topicals, definitely almost all of them offer a 10% and they position it as a standard. But is that true?
Yeah, and how many times have I feel like I've personally fell for the whole like rapid clear, reduces in 24 hours, eliminates breakouts in like, just 10 hours or something like that. So I think a lot of those claims come from the BPO realm. So we'll dig in. All right, so for concentration, there's a study that actually goes all the way back to 1986. And in this study, they want to look at concentrations between 2.5%, 5%, and 10%. Yeah, so in this clinical study, they had 153 patients with mild to moderate acne. They basically gave them a 2.5%, 5%, 10. They basically supplied the BPO product to them, and they had them use it twice daily for 8 weeks. After the 8 weeks, they did find that the 2.5% BPO gel was actually comparable to the 5 and 10% BPO gels as well.
Huh.
And they found that the antibacterial, how they concluded is the antibacterial and lipid studies that they performed also showed that 2.5% BPO was also effective for use. All right, so after the 8 weeks, what they did was they compared the mean number of lesions at time points. I believe it's 2, 4, and 8, 2, 4, 6, and 8. And they found that 2.5 versus 5%, there was really no difference between the two. They looked at the mean reduction of lesions, they looked at global ratings, and they just really didn't see too much of a difference there. And then when they actually compared it to BPO, same thing in terms of efficacy. Not really much of a significant difference there. 10% group had a much higher frequency of burning, erythema, and peeling from their subjects. And that's really it. It's a very straightforward study, just kind of showcasing the concentrations. And I know this is just one study. We are going to be talking about a lot more, but this kind of just establishes everybody's baseline of where the efficacy lies and how, I guess, we got this range. But hopefully you'll start seeing that maybe we need a lot less than what we all originally thought.
I love the studies because it really just opens up, just like set the expectation right off the bat to say, that's what these girls are about to get. I see where this is going and where they stand on BPO. And I also like that it's such an old paper and it just, I don't know, I feel like as the years go on, like with acne, the claims, the formulations get more and more aggressive. But when ingredients are, I guess, in its earlier phases of making it to the market and whatnot, the initial approach is just a much more gentle one. So I find the evolution of all of this to be pretty interesting. Though nowadays there's lower concentration options available again, which is great. And
Yeah.
a side note here is also, oh my God, we're back to N equals 150 plus kind of territories. I love acne topics.
Every time Gloria gets like a healthy looking clinical, it's just like a new person. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I always feel a little awkward coming on this podcast and trying to extrapolate something useful out of like an N equals 5 clinical in air quotes.
All the time.
Right.
It's like, I think we feel the need, we have to do like jazz hands. We have to do a little dance to like say, ooh, isn't this interesting, guys?
Yeah. Especially the N equals 5 ones. I'm always like, I might as well come on this podcast and say, it works for me and my mom, so it should work for you too. It's super silly.
It's very true. I had a thought here, Gloria, is I'm pretty sure acne is the reason why people feel like skincare needs to hurt you a little bit in order to work. I just think it's born from this category. You know, like with tretinoin and BPO and with acne, we're already so violent with our acne breakouts already, like trying to purge it, trying to pop it. I just feel like there's just a lot of aggression and it all came from this realm.
Oh, that is such a good point. I feel like it's the complete opposite of the whole like gentle treat your skin like this sensitive snowflake, and acne people are like, what? Like scrub.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's the starting point. But I did want to share another, I think, really interesting clinical. It just adds a layer of thought to BPO use. Okay. So this is a study that was done in Japan, and they started out with 180 subjects, and they broke these off into 3 groups. They had one group that did a combination of 2.5% BPO with clindamycin, antibiotic. They had a combination of, the second group had a combination of 2.5% BPO and 0.1% adapalene. And the third group, they had 0.1% adapalene with clindamycin. Okay, so these are all combination therapy. They're using 2.5% BPO with 0.1% adapalene, just reminding you of some of those numbers. The interesting thing here is not even the fact that all 3 were efficacious, because there were. I'll share the chart here. You can see that they looked at both the inflammatory versus the non-inflammatory and the total number of lesions. They looked at all of those and found all of them to be effective. They did see probably a significant difference in the non-inflammatory acne, where they see that, and unfortunately, this graph is really confusing because it's all a spectrum of gray. You've got like your dark gray to your light gray, so you got to match it up. You can pause this and kind of take a look at the graphs yourself. But you'll see that group C, which is your adapalene and antibiotic group, was actually slightly less effective in comparison to the other 2, which was the BPO adapalene and the BPO and clindamycin group. But all in all 3 generally effective.
I was going to ask, what's the time scale on this? How long did they do
good
this
point. So they did this study for 12 weeks total. Yeah, so that's actually a really good point. And I should follow up with the fact that the subjects actually used these products based on their directions. And what that means is for BPO and adapalene, they actually only used once daily. But for clindamycin, they're using it twice daily. So just something to keep in mind.
Got it. But also, even with that once daily use, which is less aggressive than many other studies, from the charts, you can still see a pretty fast effect in these cocktails.
Yeah, definitely. So these are all good signs. But I think what's really cool about this is they called this the inflammatory stage. And that is the stage where they're looking at the number of inflammatory lesions, and that if you're over the threshold, this is the stage you're in. What they wanted to do was see what would happen when they move out of this stage, when you're actually seeing significant improvement, and it's enough improvement where they want to move this group into a phase called the maintenance phase. And in order to qualify for that, the subjects would have to have less than 5 inflammatory lesions on their entire face, okay? But on one side, they cannot have more than 3. If that makes any sense, because acne is not symmetrical.
That is very
but it's like very detailed. I really like this, and I think it's a great metric or just a point of reference for people who are wondering generally what kind of breakouts they're having. They found that about 100 subjects qualified for this next stage. And then after that, they had this group use either a 2.5% BPO or a 0.1% adapalene for another 12 weeks. Yeah, just to see how is that helpful in the maintenance phase. And long story short, both performed on par. They did see further reduction. They also noted that in terms of the side effects, both also performed on par. But I just thought that is like a very realistic picture of how to handle acne regimens. I think sometimes people feel like they're stuck in this like heavy dose cocktail for a really long time. But actually, there's quite a few of us that really end up more in the maintenance phase where your breakouts are a lot more sporadic. You may not be dealing with as many breakouts that are really inflamed or even dealing with any cystic acne. And I feel like this is the realm that really the OTC acne topicals like really shine, basically.
Actually, yeah, I love that. It's such a good point. And on the flip side, I also feel like sometimes people forget to continue with their regimen once they see their skin is clearing up. Like we talked about in the acne scarring episode, a lot of these OTC topicals can actually help a lot in terms of scar healing, in your scar healing journey as well. So if you want to take down your cocktail a notch, you can absolutely do that once you're in this more maintenance phase type of cycle. But at the same time, don't stop your topicals. It's good for prevention. It's good for healing. So yeah, I love that study.
Yeah, and I have one more kind of data point that I really liked is they found that on average, they have a chart, which I'll put up here, that shows like the amount of subjects that end up qualifying for the maintenance phase at what time point. And they found on average that the sweet spot is around the 8 week mark. So I think that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of nice to kind of gauge for those that feel like they've just been put on a heavier acne regimen. That's roughly 2 breakout
Mm-hmm.
cycles. That you should be
Mm-hmm.
able to see like some significant improvement. That's like, I think that's a good time point for everybody if you're trying to figure out if your regimen is really working for you or not. So I really liked that data point as well.